This is the Spirit and Wellness Show. News and information from a higher perspective. With your host, Harry Wilkinson. Yes, here is your host, Harry Wilkinson. And welcome to the Spirit and Wellness Show. This is the show where we take a look at the days and weeks events, happenings in the world of politics and international news, media news. We take a look at all of these things that influence our lives, that we interact with on a daily, weekly basis, and we take a look at them from a higher perspective. So even though I always open the show with a sort of an explanation of what I mean by that phrase, and how this is a show that talks about spirituality in maybe a more of a metaphysical term, and that when I say spirituality, I'm talking about our sense of oneness and our sense of being more than just our physical bodies. But even though I still get asked, what do I mean by a higher perspective? So I happen to come across something here published from Unity Church. Now, if you don't know what Unity Church is a Christian-based church, but of the churches that are out there, Unity tends to be one of the more spiritual ones. They embrace a metaphysical perspective, and they embrace, the exploration of many different kinds of religions, such as Buddhism and Hinduism and other forms of spirituality besides traditional religious approaches. So Unity publishes a magazine called The Daily Word, and you can find that at dailyword.org. I'm sorry, it's dailyword.com. And these are just daily affirmations that they publish and also post on the website. And I often find some inspiration from many of them. And one that I found the other day, which I thought really puts into perspective, if you will, what I'm talking about, is one of their affirmations that came this week, which was entitled, I'm looking for it now, sorry, Spiritual Perspective, like right out of my mouth there. And so here's what they had to say, and I think it's a really good summation of it. Spiritual perspective: I see myself from a higher vantage point. Tethering my life to the way I have always thought does not serve me well. Instead, I think of life like a ride in a hot air balloon. I rise above limited points of view and experience the freedom of a broad perspective. My awareness expands, clouds of confusion clear away, and I see beyond any obstacles. From a higher vantage point, I see myself as the divine being I am. There is more than one way to accomplish what I wish. I have unlimited choices to co-create my world and the liberty to choose wisely and pursue new possibilities. As I rise to a higher awareness, my perspective gives me clear direction. Inspired, I soar beyond all limitations. And that is, I think, a good summation of what I mean by spiritual perspective. It is rising above those limited ways of thinking about things. As it relates to, news in the media, quite often we get into a negative mindset when we hear news stories like the one that I'm going to talk about today. And it's done purposefully to get our attention, to get ratings and push our buttons. But we can also look at it from a spiritual perspective. We can see beyond the limitations of good, bad, negative, positive, and take a look at it as something we're creating, a story we're telling about ourselves. And if you go into it, take the energy from it that you used to create it to begin with, it can help you actually expand and reconnect with the truth of who and what we really are. So that's what I try to do on the show. And that's the perspective with which I try to approach all of the things that we talk about and what we're going to talk about today on today's show. And this is a tough day because there's so much going on. You know, I wanted to talk about it's Father's Day, and it's also the summer solstice, first day of summer. And summer solstice is a powerful day. Father's Day is a powerful day. And these are all things that I wanted to talk about, and hopefully I'll have some time to get to them. But we have to talk about the top story, which is what happened in South Carolina. And just in case you've been, somewhere else in the past few days, to recap, a young man by the name of Dylan Roof went to the Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Charleston, South Carolina. He went to the church. He was welcomed with open arms. And he sat there in that church in their Bible study for about an hour before standing up and taking a weapon and shooting 9 people. The church was targeted because it was a historically African American church. And this young man, Roof, and there's a new article out here in the Washington Post all about him, was very deeply into white supremacy. He left a racist manifesto on his website. And apparently in that manifesto is his rationale for a shooting. Quote from him: "Someone has to have the bravery to take it to the real world, and I guess it has to be me." His goal apparently was to, I believe, start a race war. So it's been a very emotional couple of days. It's been a very tough couple of days for a lot of people, not just me, certainly, and not just the families of these people who I'm going to talk about in a minute, who are amazing. But it's been tough for people who care about anything other than themselves. Even Jon Stewart from The Daily Show, Mr. Comedy, was so upset that on his show on Thursday when this happened, he told his audience he couldn't do his job. He couldn't write jokes because of this, of what happened today. And I thought that was a very moving thing and a very decent thing to do, to take the day in reverence to think about what had just occurred. So a lot of the difficulty that people are having, besides just the horror of what happened, are some of the responses to what happened that seem to be a bit out of touch. For instance, perhaps the one that people are talking about the most are the responses from South Carolina's governor, Nikki Haley, Now, basically, one of the things that was said was, we do know that we'll never understand what motivates people to commit acts of violence such as this. And those sentiments have been echoed by a lot of people, all conservatives, of course. People like Lindsey Graham, the South Carolina senator, who said there are bad people in this world who are motivated by hate. And this from a city in a state where a Confederate flag flies over their state house. So the anger that people are having in these responses is that, how can you be confused about or not understand what motivated this killing? It's very clear what motivated it. He wrote it on his website. This boy was connected with all kinds of hate groups. And white supremacist groups. A group called the League of the South, which calls for a white-led society. They're classified as a hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center. Another group called Council of Conservative Citizens, or CCC, which, according to Southern Poverty Law Center, has ties to the Ku Klux Klan. And I didn't even know this group existed. The National Association for the Advancement of White People, both of which, of course, are openly white supremacist organizations. So he had ties to all of these. And I've got a lot of questions. Like, how did somebody like this fly under the radar when we are in this, climate of, NSA spying and wiretapping and all of this, where, everybody's emails are being, swooped up? It seems like, if a Muslim were to start, declaring things like this on their website and hanging out with, known groups of Muslim terrorists, bells and whistles will be going off all over the place. They couldn't get to that guy faster. But this kid walks around wearing buttons that support apartheid in South Africa. Nobody knows this kid is doing this stuff. Nobody's got eyes on this kid. It's just a question. Anyway, what I wanted to get to is what I always say when we have these kinds of incidents. As emotional as they are, and you can tell the emotion in my voice, I'm sure. I'm also aware that, again, at the highest level, from the metaphysical level, we are creating these stories. Because we are divine mind, the truth of who and what we are, the essence of what we really are, of course, can never be killed or can never die. It can never even be hurt. But when we create the physical, or the game we call this human existence, we put in these things where it looks like people are getting killed and hurt. And we create them to understand who and what we are. And I believe we create these events to really, that become national and international, touchstones, so that we begin to really understand and connect with people on a spiritual level. I've said this over and over again when, too many of these horrible incidents have happened. And it's like it brings to light the things that we know we need to change. President Obama, in talking about this, echoed something I said last Sunday when I was talking about the fact that there are no political solutions to any problem, and there are no military solutions to any problem. There's only one solution, and that's a spiritual solution. And what President Obama said about this was that, he was very weary of having to address the nation yet again, I think the 14th time, he said, about an incident caused by gun violence. And he expressed the idea that in order for this to change, there has to be a change of heart or change of spirit in the nation before anything could be done politically to limit access of guns. So there needs to be a change of will, and that means a change of spirit. I used the example last week of how quickly now gay marriage is being accepted, when for decades it wouldn't have been. And that's simply a change in spirit. And to me, it's a sign that people are, expanding or evolving spiritually. But we've yet to evolve enough to do something about guns. And there's a big reason for that. So what is it? What is it that people get guns for? Guns come right out of fear. It's fear. It's all fear-based stuff. And when you are still living in fear, you're living in illusion. And when you're living in illusion, you feel the need to protect yourself, I guess. In ways that may be over the line, if you will. So I understand it's disheartening. It is. It is, because again, people have, or the appearance of death has occurred. And the same story is, coming up again. It's like Groundhog's Day, It just keeps happening again and again. The movie is what I mean, not the actual day. If you haven't seen Groundhog's Day with Bill Murray, it's a movie about a weather reporter who is stuck in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania on Groundhog's Day and keeps living the same day over and over again until he learns about humanity and about people and so forth and so on. And that's what this is. I mean, we will experience these same stories over and over again. We'll keep creating them until we don't need to create them anymore. But one of the reasons I think that we still seem to need to create these situations is the reminder of who and what we are. So what I want to talk about now is what the relatives of some of the 9 parishioners that were killed at this church had to say to this young man named Roof. And what they had to say were words of forgiveness that are so powerful, I have to read them to you now, because this is how we approach things from a spiritual perspective. Nadine Collier, daughter of victim Ethel Lance, said, "I forgive you. You took something very precious away from me. I will never get to talk to her ever again. I will never be able to hold her again. But I forgive you. And have mercy on your soul. You hurt me. You hurt a lot of people. But if God forgives you, I forgive you." There's a relative of Myra Thompson, someone else who was shot that night. I would just like him to know that, to say the same thing that was just said, I forgive him and my family forgives him. But we would like him to take this opportunity to repent, confess, give your life to the one who matters most, so that he can change him and change your ways, so no matter what happens to you, you'll be okay. Well, these are church people, of course, so they're going to, express these things in terms that they are familiar with. Here comes Felicia Sanders, a mother of another of the victims. "We welcomed you Wednesday night in our Bible study with welcome arms. You have killed some of the most beautiful people I've ever known. Every fiber in my body hurts, and I'll never be the same. Tywanza Saunders was my son, but Tywanza Saunders was my hero. May God have mercy on you." This is Wanda Simmons, granddaughter of another of the victims. "My grandfather and the other victims died at the hands of hate. This is proof. Everyone's plea for your soul is proof that they lived in love, and their legacies will live in love. So hate won't win. And I just want to thank the court for making sure that hate doesn't win." Hate won't win. That's why I chose that to be the title of today's show. Here comes the sister of another one of the victims. "That was my sister, and I'd like to thank you on behalf of my family for not allowing hate to win. For me, I'm a work in progress, and I acknowledge that I'm very angry. But one thing that DePayne always enjoyed in our family is she taught me that we are the family that love built. We have no room for hating, so we have to forgive. I pray God on your soul." That's what she said. Really amazing. I mean, and this is something that they said, I mean, immediately after the shooting. Very powerful words. Forgiving is a powerful tool, and there's lots of reasons, and it's too short a show to be able to go into them now. But the ability to forgive something so horrible and not let hate win should be an amazingly inspiring lesson for every one of us. Okay, I'm going to move on now. So it is the winter solstice. That's funny. It is the summer solstice, of course, and summer solstice is the time when, well, just from a cyclical perspective, spring is the time when new ideas are born, seeds start to grow, eggs start to hatch, and in summertime, things have sort of fully manifested and are now at their youth and their vigor and their energy and commitment. So summer solstice is the time of energy, commitment, and action. It's a very active time. And you can see that, of course, summer is always an active time with people, swimming, riding bikes, doing all of the things that they love to do in the warm weather. If you happen to be in a place where, seasons change. So, sort of from a spiritual perspective, summer solstice means this is the time to get energized and get going and start being active in whatever it is that you are passionate about. Whether it be, a hobby, your job, an idea, a political motivation, whatever it is. This is usually what the change in seasons means. So, take that within in your meditations, and the south is the bottom of the spirit wheel or the medicine wheel, and it's about innocence and childhood, but it's also about energy and activity. So if you take that into your meditation and see what comes up, I think you'll have some guidance about maybe how you want to approach this summer. And on that note, the summer solstice having to do with the earth and the earth's changes, this week we can talk about Pope Francis, who came out very strongly. Not only, agreeing with scientists about global warming and that humans are to blame for it. And he came out against the big businesses, energy companies, short-sighted politicians, scurrilous scientists, laissez-faire economists, and indifferent individuals, callous Christians, and myopic media professionals. Scarcely any area of society escaped his withering criticism. The earth, our home, is beginning to look more and more like an immense pile of filth, Francis said. In many parts of the planet, the elderly lament that once beautiful landscapes are now covered with rubbish. This is all part of what they call an encyclical, which is sort of, in a way, a manifesto from the Pope. And long story short, he seems to be he's saying for a revolution is necessary. If we ever hope to change the way we are going, and oddly for a member or a leader of an organized religion, he's rather pessimistic, it seems, in his statements that or in his belief that we will be able to change, that we will be able to stop the cycle of destruction that global warming is causing. So very powerful stuff. No pope, I don't think, has ever come out as strongly about something like this. Certainly conservatives and religious types haven't really done it. So it's of course raising a lot of hackles from conservatives, but we don't even really need to listen to them. It's just a real acknowledgement from someone who goes beyond religion and goes into spirituality. So bravo for the Pope. And last but not least, it's Father's Day, and I'm not going to have enough time to share this with you too much. Just interesting story about how Father's Day started. And it started around the same time as Mother's Day, and it started in West Virginia, apparently. Mother's Day started in Grafton, West Virginia, and started by someone named Anna Jarvis, who wanted to hold a celebration for her mother who'd passed away. And then she began to promote it as a holiday. Well, 2 months later, someone in Fairmount, West Virginia, by the name of Grace Golden Clayton, was mourning the loss of her father, who died in a mining disaster nearby, along with 250 other fathers, and started a ceremony to celebrate those fathers. And this celebration grew, and they promoted it over the years. But it really wasn't until, it looks like it wasn't until 1966 when President Johnson issued the first presidential proclamation honoring fathers and designating the third Sunday in June as Father's Day. And then Richard Nixon signed it into law to make it a permanent national holiday. So that wasn't until 1972. So we really have only had Father's Day, as a permanent holiday since 1972, which is fascinating. But just want to say Happy Father's Day to everybody who is a father or does fatherly things for people. It's a tough job being a dad for a lot of reasons. Moms are kind of easier for people to honor. Or dads, sometimes there's issues around dads. Anyway, have a wonderful Father's Day and a wonderful week. And don't let hate win.